Hi, I'm Christine Tulley, President and Executive Writing Coach at Defend, Publish, and Lead. Welcome to episode 146, The Soundtrack to Your Masterpiece. I started thinking about this because I came across an old article in Nylon magazine about literature works and the authors who wrote them, describing how they listen to music and what kinds of music did they listen to for specific projects. And I really like this idea of thinking about intentionality when we work on different projects. At Defend and Publish and Lead, we're very flexible on the way that we talk about writing approaches. We understand all projects are different. Your week might be different. So we've talked a lot about scheduling on this podcast and just understanding that even if you, for example, set up a fall semester where you're writing 8 hours a week at the same times during the week, we all know that things happen. Sometimes a semester gets busier. Sometimes you might have a health crisis and your schedule is a mess. And writing can sometimes change week to week. That often is the reality of academic writing. So one of the things that we've advocated on this podcast and through all the work in our company is the idea of joyful academic writing. And so I started looking around to think about the role of music in writing, because I know for me, I can write with music, I can write without it. I like to have it when I can, but I also like writing in the quiet library. And if I forgot my headphones, I'm not gonna, go to the noisier section just so I can have some music. But I know that a lot of the clients that we work with, when we talk about writing habits and do some fine tuning with writing habits, we come to find out that writers can be successful in a variety of methods. I mean, we still have some that need absolute quiet. We have some that just need sort of background noise of, for example, a coffee shop or a busy street or something like that to write. And then we have a healthy contingent of folks that have dedicated soundtracks and playlists that they listen to when they write. So why I was looking for this Nylon article is that I've been trying to research a little bit about folks that match writing to their projects. And they actually have, say, a specific playlist for a specific project. And I've come up with this post. So I'm going to go ahead and share it on the screen. I'll put a link in the show notes for those of you that are listening audio only. But I really like this because this particular post interviews these 12 authors about key works. In this case, these are all novels, I believe. And it talks about the different music that they listen to through the various phases of the project. So I find this really interesting because I know I've already done one episode. I believe it was episode 5 on making writing an event. And I've talked a lot on this podcast about how I do try to set it up that writing is something pleasurable and fun for me to do. I don't think it's fun all the time. It comes and goes for me just like it does for everybody else. But one of the things that has helped me that I talked a little bit about in episode 5 was this idea of having a playlist as I'm driving to go to the library to go ahead and work on writing. So this is obviously not possible for everybody anywhere. Some of you might, have a shorter commute, whether you're walking or maybe a longer one where you're in the car for a long time. But for me, I have, 15, 20 minutes or so, and it's just about the right amount of time to just listen to what I would call sort of pump up songs. Mine tend to be more, let's just say peppy and motivating. If you want to listen to any of those, I have a Spotify channel. This one's actually my personal one. This is not the business one because I was doing this before the business, but they're called Academic Writing Pre-Games. I think I have 10 or 11 playlists under that genre. They're under Tulley, Tulley, if you want to find them. And I'll also link them in the show notes. But why I like those is that they really do kind of match whatever it is that I'm working on. And when I get sort of tired of those pump up songs, I make new ones. But in general, they tend to be kind of positive, encouraging music or just fun to listen to. But the type of writing that I use when I'm or the type of music I listen to when I'm actually writing differs a great deal. And what I realized is that I do mix up that music if I'm going to listen to it based on the project that I'm working on. So I did have one project where I pretty much listened to jazz all the time. I had another one where I listened to music from Star Restaurants. So I'm a big fan of Star Restaurants in Philadelphia. And Steven Starr does these great playlists, which I have a link to on I'll put a link to in the show notes where you can get his playlists on Spotify, but they're great. They go with a lot of his restaurants, but I like those a lot for writing too. I also like a lo-fi hip hop situation for that kind of music. I'll listen to that on maybe a YouTube channel. There's a lot of lo-fi hip hop to listen to. But what I'm using this fall is a channel that I started, and I actually put on Spotify, just called, I think it's called like Writing Session 1, because I decided I should start making some of these into playlists on Spotify, and then if anybody else wants them, they can listen to them. But lately, what I've been listening to during the fall of 2023 is classical guitar. I do play the guitar, not well, but I'm kind of a beginner forever. But I do listen to that, and that's been something that's been really helpful for me because I'm working on a newer project that I really wanted to have sort of a new playlist and kind of new energy for it. So why I'm bringing this to your attention as one of our topics for this particular week is that, at the point that this is being recorded, this is the time it comes out will be mid-October. And for me, I kind of have the tendency to start out really strong in the fall semester. And then somewhere around the last week of October, things just get really, really busy with grading, with, various other obligations. And then it seems like everything's moving very quickly towards the holiday season. And while I'm still writing, I tend to write less and less. So maybe one week I'll write 8 hours, but then the next it's like 6 hours and 45 minutes. And it seems for me that writing does tend to get squeezed out. So I knew for me that I really wanted to have writing music with new energy for this particular project because I want to reset that track in my brain. So I guess it goes with a track or a soundtrack. But I really want to think about like, what is the soundtrack? We call it the soundtrack to our masterpiece, like this Nylon article kind of phrases this music to. How does your masterpiece get written? So I started thinking about it in that way. And so what I'd encourage you to do as a tip for this week is if you do like to write to music, think about a way that you can either find a new flavor or new group, new artist or something in the genre that you like, or maybe switch genres altogether just to give yourself sort of that jolt and that kind of new reminder that I'm working on this new project or I'm working on a new phase of a project. I just advised a student that was working on a dissertation. This dissertation has taken a very long time, as dissertations do. And the student that I was working with was very, very burned out on this project. They really did not have that much to go, but it just was sort of that last, 80% finished, the last 20% to go, but it was a hard 20%. And so we talked about a lot of different motivating things, but also cues to kind of remind them to do certain things. So one of the things we talked about is writing as a dissertation student. If you're sitting in, your office for 12 hours or at home for like 10 hours in these very long writing stretches, we talked about the idea of, using that music as sort of a cue to sit up straight and, a certain song to remind them to go get another cup of coffee or something like that. So I don't know if that's helpful for you to think about, but if you are using music, I encourage you to think about different ways that it can help support you either on the journey to get there to your writing session. So, a pregame, an academic writing pregame, or as music as a soundtrack to what you're working on in the moment. So, and if silence is your soundtrack, that's great too. We'd love to hear from people on either Twitter or on LinkedIn. If you've got some suggestions of good writing music, we'd love to keep the conversation going. And we'd love to hear some more suggestions for writing music so we can talk about those in later episodes. Happy writing, everybody. Thanks for listening.